Hello, BookTube. This is Hope from Pros Before Bros. It is Tuesday, November 27th. And yeah, it's Tuesday. I never post anything on Tuesday. What is going on? I don't know. I just wanted to do an impromptu post. I finished up a series of books in the past week. And I finished up I guess it's not the conclusion of the series, but I'm considering it the conclusion of the series because the last official book is just a perspective from what I can gather. And I haven't read that part yet. So I wanted to talk about this book because it's been, for whatever reason, it's been popping up a lot in my feed lately on YouTube. If you guys have seen this in your feed, let me know. I don't know what is going on, so I don't know if it's just directed towards me or what, but the books that I'm talking about, or the series that I'm talking about, is the After series by Anna Todd. Now, you might know what the After series is if you have visited Wattpad. Wattpad is basically kind of a different version of excuse me. I just finished up a peppermint mocha. So I'm just like, anyways, Wattpad is essentially like a new version, a newer version of fanfiction.net where you could post original stories and you could post fan fiction as well. So the After series is actually a fan fiction that is on Wattpad. And it is a One Direction fan fiction that focuses on Harry Styles. Before you ask, no, I'm not a One Direction fan. I've never really listened to their music. I have nothing against them. So I did walk into this with an open mind. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I've never listened to their music, so I can't distinguish myself as one. So yeah, this is basically a revised version of that fan fiction of Anna Todd's. I think her author name, let me see here, is Imaginator 1D, D as in dog, or direction in this case. So, this was getting so many hits. It got over 1 million hits. Actually, 1 billion reads. Holy hell. 1 billion reads online, and the company that runs the gallery books, I believe it's Simon & Schuster, reached out to her, the publishing house reached out to her and asked her to consider writing an entire series or publishing the book. Only catch is she had to cut back on using Harry Styles' namesake, or face claim if you will, and come up with a different name for her character. That way lawsuits won't happen. I wanted to read this series in particular, one, because of curiosity. Like I said, it kept popping up inside my BookTube recommendations. I saw that they have a trailer. Apparently it's going to be a movie, or it's optioned to be a movie for April 2019's release date. And also because I found Anna Todd quite interesting, and from what I gathered on just researching Anna Todd, this is like the first thing that she had essentially wrote on her own. She was writing this whole entire series on her phone, so she wasn't using a computer or anything like that. She was literally typing the whole series out on her phone, which I found very, very interesting and very unique. I know some people kind of snub that, but I feel like in our generation and our economic standpoint, sometimes we don't have easy access to that kind of, to a computer, if you will. Sometimes your phone is your only option. And I found out that Anna Todd is actually from a town that is close to my old hometown, and it's Dayton, Ohio. People make fun of me because I say it weird. I usually drop the T. But she was from Dayton, Ohio. And she had a really, really rough childhood. Apparently, her father had been killed violently in front of her. She had very little means of financial resources. Her mother wasn't really all that present from what I can gather, and she married right out of high school. She married her high school sweetheart right before he went off to basic training. And she uprooted from Ohio, moved to Texas, and this was something that she did, I think maybe as a coping mechanism to kind of really just reflect on all these changes that she had to go through. I could be wrong. I'm not a psychologist, whatever. But I found her quite interesting. I found her story very interesting. And she seems like she's a very down-to-earth person. So I really wanted an opportunity to read her books and kind of get my take on them. So I finished up the entire series, I would say, within 2 weeks. Now, I got the After series, which is the first in the book series, and After We Collided, which is their second book. As you can tell, these are huge books. Obvious reasons is she had over 100 chapters in each of these stories on Wattpad. This one is After We Fell, which is the biggest book in the series, as you could tell. And then we have, I'm saying this is technically the last book in the series because the other is a perspective book, but we have Happily Ever After, After Ever Happy. And this was like the final wrap up, if you will. The next book in the series is called Before, and it focuses on the love interest Hardin's story, or his perspective, if you will. So yeah, my husband actually bought these for me as an early Christmas present because I was researching them and reading the fan fiction, and it's like, I really wish I could get a hard copy of it. So he went ahead and bought me the series for early Christmas present. So thank you, husband, for doing that. That was awesome. And I didn't break my no by November deal that I had with myself. That's even better. I'm so happy. So yeah, I finished all those books within 2 weeks. Overall, I believe I gave the entire series like a 3 point. It's actually, I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads for each individual book. That's the average. But I would say 3.75 is a solid star number I would give it. My goodness, I need to stop hiccuping. So let's talk about the summary of the books. It all starts with our female protagonist, Tessa. Tessa is about 18 years old, I believe, and she is starting off her freshman year in college. Tessa comes from a very sheltered background. We have her mother, who is primarily her only family member that's active in her life. Her mother's name is Carol. Carol's very conservative, very into appearances, and into just being the best. She wants everything to be clean and orderly and not to have any complications whatsoever. The second character that is a heavy influence in Tessa's life is her boyfriend, who is a year younger than her. He's a senior when she's a freshman in high school. Not high school. A freshman in college. Ooh, got mixed up there. And he's very conservative as well. They have made out to some degree, not much. He is very no-nonsense, and oftentimes the love interest, Hardin, who develops throughout the book series, is referring to him as Mr. Rogers because he wears penny loafers and he wears the little sweater situations. So that kind of paints a little bit of an image for you. He's very conservative, very put together, if you will. So it starts off with them, both Carol and Noah helping Tessa transfer or move over into her new role as a freshman student in college. They are moving her into her dorm. They're really excited for her. They are looking forward for her to have a great experience. They open the door to the dorm and she meets her roommate, Steph. And Steph is quite the opposite of Tessa, who is very straight-laced and not very experimental with her looks. And in this case, Steph is very experimental with her looks. She has the piercings, she has the crazy color hair, and she's very punk goth, if you will. This immediately throws up red flags for her mother and for Noah. They don't want her to stay there. They want her to move. And it's really complicated. One single act of rebellion that Tessa starts off with is, I'm not moving. I'm staying here. I'm giving this a shot. And then comes Hardin. Hardin Scott is going to be our male love interest. Yes, she's still with Noah, but she ends up being with Hardin. And that is a little bit of a problem there. And I'm going to go into my cons with that there in a second. But she meets Hardin. Hardin is quite the opposite of Noah. He's got tattoos. He's got piercings. And essentially, he looks like Harry Styles. He's got the curly hair and just, yeah, he's the bad boy. And the bad boy decides that he is going to pursue Tessa, the good girl. And there's a lot of turns and twists. There's a lot of spoilers I could go into, but I'm not going to go into those. So we start off book one with their journey to them becoming a couple. Now with book one, the thing that bothered me the most is the relationship progression with Tessa and Hardin. They obviously get together. The only thing is Tessa does not essentially tell Noah about this. He kind of finds out on his own. And she's not upfront with him. She hooks up with Hardin and basically leaves poor Noah in the dust. And he finds out the hard way that this is happening, and they essentially break up. So I was not really thrilled with the cheating aspect. I do know that that does happen in many cases. And when I was in college, one thing that I always did, I think I was doing it for like 3 or 4 years. It's like right when I got into colleges, I was an RA. So I was a resident assistant to 2 or 3 floors inside my building. And yeah, that was a constant problem. I would have constant issues with trying to have a conversation with a girl who's upset because her boyfriend found out back home that she's fooling around with a guy on campus. And yeah, I was a therapist part-time essentially because I was having to deal with that too. So yeah, that kind of irked me a little bit. It reminded me a lot of my days as a RA and having to deal with that. And just, I don't know. I guess my logic is I don't understand if you're going through a situation where you're feeling like you're questioning your relationship, you should just go ahead and nip it in the bud and get it taken care of. That way it could save you and your former significant other some comfort, some heartache, if you will. That's just my opinion. Overall, each book progresses a little bit more with some of the issues that this young couple run into, Hardin and Tessa. Hardin is one of those people that don't want to be committed. He doesn't believe in marriage. He doesn't want children. He's just not down for any of that. I feel like sometimes that could be a little bit of an overplayed character analysis. But I feel like Anna did a fairly good job playing it. I just think sometimes we fall into that with every male character. They don't want complications. They don't want commitment. They don't want children. And that could be a little bit tiresome sometimes. So I wasn't a fan of that. And that was something that progressed throughout the series up to After Ever Happy. That changes a little bit. A third thing that I was not necessarily a fan of is, it's kind of a double-sided one. I wasn't a fan of it, but I liked how the outcome changed, is Hardin's, what what's the word, personality. With Hardin, for instance, his personality is that he was very, I'm just going to go ahead and say he was very emotionally and psychologically abusive. He would do things such as tell Tessa, how to, tell Tessa what to do, or who she could speak to. And Tessa was really hung up on that and making sure that she was doing everything to please him. Anytime that she would do something that she felt could potentially displease him, it was always that mindset, oh my God, I don't want to talk to Hardin about this. That's not a healthy way to have a relationship. Obviously, I'm speaking from experience because I've been in an abusive relationship, and it's not fun. It's not a lifestyle that anyone should have to put up with. So when I was reading that was very triggering, in the sense that I wish that she was just like, I'm my own person. I'm going to do what I want. And maybe even just walk away. Which we get to in the third book. We do have a little bit of a break where she does realize that this is not healthy and she needs to do something. Oh, excuse me. So that was very problematic. Now, the flip side to Hardin's personality is eventually he realizes what he's doing is not very healthy. It's not healthy for himself. It's not healthy for Tessa. It's not healthy for any sort of relationship for him to be so overbearing and so aggressive and ultimately abusive. The word abusive does not come up until we get to the third book. And that's when it's really acknowledged. It's really brought to life by Tessa, our protagonist. So even though I was not happy with Hardin's personality, I did find some sort of redeeming factor in the fact that by the fourth book in the series, After Ever Happy, that he was going to change. And when I say change, it was like not a broken promise. He went in and got therapy. He joined support groups to help build on his recovery because he was a recovering alcoholic with anger issues. So I like the fact that Anna Todd tied that into the entire setting. Like, she acknowledged the fact that she knew that that relationship wasn't healthy. One of the things that I brought up in my last video was I don't want to use the word disdain because I don't disdain this particular author, but Colleen Hoover, and my disagreements, if you will, with some of her male characters. A lot of her male characters are very pushy and very unhealthy in terms of their relationships. They are emotionally or mentally abusive. And I had that feeling throughout almost every single book of hers I've read up to the book This Ends With Us. And that changed drastically because she acknowledged that one of her main characters was abusive and they had to do something to separate themselves from that character. So I did appreciate that. But it felt like that was unintentional until that book came around. With Anna Todd, I feel like she had built that character and kind of knew that that was something in the back of her head that they would have to address down the road. So the fact that she was addressing it, that yes, Hardin does have a problem and he needs to take care of it before he loses everyone and everything. I feel like that was such a great representation. Does that happen every time? Absolutely not. I could tell you with my ex, it was something that I and other people had seen, but he did not want to acknowledge that. So, not everything's going to be happily ever after, obviously, but I appreciate the fact that she tried to find a resolution for the negative energy that he was producing in Tessa's life. So that was one good piece that I really enjoyed about it. And just the fact that, like, it does speak to real life issues, that we do have a lot of these college students that get into relationships that aren't healthy. It's very real. It's very poignant. So I do appreciate that sense. One thing other than just those few pieces is I feel like some of the book was just over, what's the word I'm looking for? It was like too much. So some of the things, like for instance, After We Fell, take a look at this book. I mean, it's thick, it's huge. Let me get a page number on this. So, excluding acknowledgments, the total amount of pages in this book is 834 pages. It's a huge, substantial book, and there's things in here that I feel like the reader could simply do without. A lot of times with her books, especially in After, it was like these teeny tiny moments that just didn't add up to anything. And that's fine. Sometimes you have to have those fillers, but I feel like sometimes it was excessive, especially in this book. I feel like we're going around in circles with the same kind of dilemmas, and it could have been easily resolved, or it could not have been discussed at all. So those are my little tidbits that I wasn't too impressed on. Overall, I feel like the whole series in general is very good. It's interesting. Just those drawbacks, I feel like sometimes it can drag out a little bit. Now, the fourth book in this series, After Happy Ever... Did I say it right? No. After Ever Happy. See, I keep screwing this up. I get what she was trying to do with the names of the titles here, but I really wish this one was a little bit easier to remember. With After Ever Happy, I feel like some of the stuff was sped up. So we have 3 books in the series that was dragged out, maybe unnecessarily dragged out. And then we get to the 4th book, the final book in the series. And as you can tell, it's not that many pages. And I feel like things were sped up just so we could say this book is done. Let's move on. So those are my only few critiques with it. Do I think it's a book series that should not be read? Absolutely not. I think every book series should have some sort of opportunity. Like I said, I gave it 3.75 stars in my head. Probably on Goodreads, I think it was like 3 stars was the average for each book, and I would say it's solid 3 stars for the entire series. Is it the best series ever? No. That's actually another argument I had too. Some of the reviews in the books just kind of had me rolling my eyes a bit. So Cosmopolitan put down for the praise, Todd is the biggest literary phenom of her generation. Let's see here. I have one that's from That's Normal, the Mr. Darcy and Lizzie Bennet of our time. No. I don't think it's a literary phenom. At least that's my personal opinion. I've read so many books like The Hate U Give that I feel like that's a literary phenom, and it in its own right. It's a piece that is going to last forever. And that's just my personal opinion. No, it's not the modern day Pride and Prejudice. Not in any sense of the word. It's okay. It's decent, but it's not anything to go crazy about. So yeah, those are my opinions on the After series. If you are interested in reading them, I'm sure that you could probably get them at your local library. I saw that my library had audiobooks of it, which I feel like this is good if you can't stand to pick up a heavy volume to read. So that's one way. I actually talked to my husband, and I believe a couple of the books he got used which cut down the cost quite a bit. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the After series. A solid 3.75 stars. It could be better, it could be worse, but I'll let you take your digs at it and let me know if you've read it. If you have comments about it, please put them down inside your comments section below. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in and have a good night. Bye.